Greetings and welcome to another episode of Coffee with Kiyonah. May you be blessed. So today, I'm going to play some music. So today, I would like to talk to you about some of my thoughts regarding world peace. Is world peace possible? Is inner peace possible? Is any kind of peace possible? And I was thinking about this because it was Memorial Day. And I was thinking, it'd be nice if we honored peacemakers instead of victims of war, including soldiers who, in my opinion, a lot of times were cannon fodder for the establishment, for the American empire. And I asked my partner, who knows a lot about history, I said, what are some examples of when American soldiers died for our freedom? What are the real actual wars where they actually did die for our freedom or made a sacrifice for our freedom? And he said the main examples he said was the Civil War and the Revolutionary War. And so we got to talking about that. And that led to some interesting conversation about revolution, like the Chinese Revolution, the Russian Revolution, the American Revolution. And somehow the name of Mao Tse-tung came up. I think his name is Mao, Chairman Mao of China. And he told me so much stuff about China and Mao that I never, ever heard in the mainstream narratives. Basically, the mainstream narrative is that he killed or was responsible for the death of millions of people because he was some kind of communist or socialist or fascist or some label, Marxist. I don't know that much about history. But the point is that it was an armed revolt against the colony system in China that was causing everyone to suffer. So the people got together and had a violent revolution of people shooting and killing each other, actually. And he was the leader of that people's revolution. So you hear the mainstream narrative that there's this guy Mao, Chairman Mao, and he was responsible for all these murders, millions of murders. But if you look at the actual real story of what happened, the people were having a revolution in order to get their lives back, and they died for it a lot of times. And that really is fighting for your freedom and for peace. But I don't know anything about Chinese history, but when I think of China, I never thought of a colony system there where there's colonies. And I thought they were just one big giant country, that's ruled by this totalitarian government. I need to learn a lot more, but the point is, we think about world peace and we think about war, how it's presented in the mainstream narratives, like the Middle East. That was another part of our conversation with the Middle East, with the Israelis and the Palestinians. I was like, what if the Palestinians are guerrilla warriors, like Native Americans, who were kicked off of their land and they're trying to get their land back, and they're just being totally oppressed and destroyed by the empire, and they're fighting back, So it's not so easy to just say, let's have world peace. Can't we all get along? Can't we just broker a deal? Because there's more going on than just seeing people as murderers or terrorists. There's the people's side of it and what they're trying to accomplish. And as far as world peace tying in with inner peace, I heard a story on NPR where there was this young guy who was an ISIS fighter, and he was able to see into this young woman's apartment from where he was staying, and he fell in love with her and he wanted her. but he was a country boy and an ISIS fighter, and she was a city girl. So the ISIS guy asked, like, how can I get this girl? You know, and the two guys he asked just happened to be friends with that girl, and they didn't want her to become a wife of someone in ISIS. So they were trying to think of how they could put him off and give her time to make arrangements to flee if he seriously took her and made her his wife. And so they said, the first thing you have to do is cut your hair. And he said, no, Muhammad had long hair. And they're like, well, if you want her, you have to do that because city girls don't like this long religious hair. So he did it. And then, so he was like, so now what do I do? Now what do I do? Now what do I do? And they told him these things he had to do to get her. And he was strongly motivated because he wanted her, but they didn't want him to actually get her. Well, as time in the different situations was winding down and running out, they decided to show him a movie. And they showed him a movie called Rambo 3. I think it's where he's helping Afghanistan people fight against Russia or something. I've never seen it, but it was part of the whole war machine in the 1980s where they were trying to militarize everything and get everyone into war. But when the guy, that country boy in ISIS, saw it, he thought it was real. He didn't realize it was a story because he was uneducated, I guess. He was like, what magic is this that people can fight inside this box? And he was like, I want to find this man. I want to fight for him. I want to fight for his cause. And the two guys that showed him the movie had to tell him that it wasn't real. It was just a story. And it was a story that was like propaganda to get people pumped up for war. And he had like an existential aha moment where he realized that if this was a story that was made up and he could feel such passion for it, then maybe ISIS was the same situation, you know? So he said, I'm not going to take this girl. I'm going to go back and get my two brothers and I'm going to bring them here and show them that there's more to the world than what we knew in the countryside. So I guess one point I want to make is that war and revolution is not always what we think it is. And we need to be able to see all the sides of it, not just the mainline narrative. And the other thing is people can change, including ISIS people, terrorists, everyone. They can change and evolve as they awaken. My partner was telling me about the Russian Revolution and tying it into World War II and saying, you know, they had been fighting ruthlessly in these wars and everything. And then World War II came along and they were the main ones who fought it and wrapped it up, not America. That's what he told me. And I was like, wow, they had PTSD from all those years of war. That's why they couldn't be peaceful and diplomatic and whatever, and work out like an ascension style solution using their power. They fought brutally and millions and millions and millions and millions of people died from what I've been told about history. So they can change. Like, you know, the ISIS kid changed by being exposed to other things in the world besides the countryside and ISIS. And, you know, the Russians had PTSD, in my opinion, and they also can evolve and flower into something great. You know, China, you know, when you listen to the radio, they just want to make us afraid of China. But is it possible to look at it and see really good, powerful, amazing, wonderful things and how we can be connected and build bridges together? Like, why can't we choose that instead of choosing war? And why can't we have a holiday to honor peacemakers instead of warmongers and victims of war? You know? So I think part of finding peace is understanding the true experience and the true causes and the true motivations and all of that, of what's really going on. And to do that, you have to dig deeply, and you have to talk to people who have understanding of history. You know, you have to watch documentaries or read really good books about it. And on Facebook, I recently posted a video that was titled, These 5 Books Expose a History That the Establishment Doesn't Want You to Know. And apparently there's a new publishing company that's going to be publishing books of suppressed history and suppressed information. The ways that it's suppressed is either the establishment files lawsuits against the people to silence their books, or they get the reviewers to blacklist them, you know, or they outright just kill the author, you know. And I'm sure there's other ways as well that they suppress this information, but Americans are thoroughly dumbed down. We have no idea what the state capitals are, who the presidents are, where the different countries in the world are, etc., etc. If you go anywhere and ask people, you know, either they're privileged and educated or they're just very intelligent or something, but most people will stumble on a lot of questions these days, you know. So we need to sharpen ourselves up and feed our minds so that when we look at situations, when we hear something about China or Russia or the Middle East or Africa, you know, that we can think constructively and critically with a mind towards nonviolent communication and diplomacy and peace instead of judgment, like, oh, they're terrorists, they just want to blow up the world and they're all religious fanatics and stuff. That does not help anything, okay? Even criticizing Trump that way. I always say, do not attack the person, attack the policy, attack the principle, you know, attack the foundation of what these people are being used for to manifest and embody. What is it? Go after that, you know. So we need to understand that when we look at war, we always say honor the soldiers and they sacrificed for our freedom, but did they really sacrifice for our freedom? And what can we really do that's actually a sacrifice for freedom? Yes, honor those people, but really start honoring peacemakers and peaceful warriors and people who understand diplomacy, like that girl Malala, you know, or any number of other people. And just start being choosy in your consciousness about how you perceive history and politics and the current world situation. You know, think skeptically and deeply. Like, why are they motivated to say that? Is that an opinion or a fact? Is that biased at all? Is that credible? Is that actually true? Why would they say that in that report? Why would they present it that way? Especially if it has an emotional tone to it, to get you to react to something. You know, like getting hyped up for war. You know, I think one of the Bushes said, you know, if you're not for us, then you're against us. And that's not fair. That's totalitarian in my opinion. Like, free minds don't always think alike, you know. And in order to have peace, we have to allow each other to be true to what is important, you know, for our different journeys. You can't just say someone has to do something and then bomb them and invade them and control them. That's just ludicrous. It's like it's a manufactured war just to make money, and they're just making up all these reasons that are just obscuring what's really going on. I'd like to see America be the heroes of the world and not spend any money on war. Just if we need to defend ourselves against people who are not fully evolved, then okay. But other than that, spend some of this bombing money on diplomacy, like on you know, not only taking care of our own country, but if we're going to do a war, instead of doing a war where we bomb and hurt people, use that same amount of money to flower their culture or to blossom their education or to raise their infrastructure or their connectingness to the internet. use the money for that instead. Not training them with weapons like I've heard went on in the 80s and probably still now. Not training other cultures with weapons and selling them weapons and stuff. But teaching them about agriculture and education and healthcare if they need that help, if they want that help. Whatever it is, you know, like I feel like we totally destroyed Iraq for no reason, you know, and some other places. Like, it's shameful, and I can't believe history actually unfolded that way. It's terrible, 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 you know, and I hope that we can forge a better future. So I need to go for now, so remember to be beautiful, be free, and be true to yourself, whether it's peaceful or not. Peace has its place, and so does chaos. There's always a dance of life that seeks balance and rhythm, you know. And be blessed whenever you get a chance, and be blessed and be a blessing. And until I talk with you again, take care and take it easy. Namaste and blessed be.